Good rising, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I am Tayla Andre. Waking up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day we link up, but waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Today is the day that the Lord hath made. I am rejoiced and glad in it. Motivational Monday. I can't tell you the type of conversation that we're about to have today. First and foremost, I am honored and excited because today we interview, she's called me her sister in service in the past, and I fully accept. My sister, Ayanna Pressley, I have watched her grow from the city councilor to our congresswoman. She has completely altered the way we think, feel, and interact with politics, not just on our city level, but on the state level, and just across the globe. People know her for her outspokenness. I want to know how many people previously, prior to Ayanna sitting on some of these congressional seats, having these conversations, like how many people actually watched anything on Capitol Hill? How many times have you turned on to CNN and purposely wanted to watch? I know I do. Maybe that's me, that's the nerd in me, but I love the way the authenticity, for me, Ayanna does not have she does not code switch. And so when she's sitting there having a conversation, talking about Boston and talking about politics, and then she comes off that seat, out of that limelight, behind the green room, she's the exact same person. And for me, that is the biggest, thank you. Thank you for being yourself. Thank you for being authentic. Thank you for never being fake. And if you have ever interacted with any types of politics anywhere, that's the vibe and the feel that you always get. And so I am Tayla Andre. Without any further ado, my sister in service, my heart, I'm so proud of her when she's out in the streets, in the community, doing what she does, representing us the best way that we could ever be represented. I am beyond proud. I feel accomplished. Even though it's not me sitting in that seat, I feel like I can. My daughter can. The rest of our daughters can. And I feel the light. I feel the love. Without any further ado, good rising, my love.
Good rising. And that was very generous. And I would just say that if you really believe all those things, just know that I am simply a reflection of you. And I want to extend that because I remember several years back when I was in Grove Hall attending a banquet dinner that was honoring Minister Don Muhammad. And it was a time period just like now, right? Heading into an election, I had been out on doors doing get out the vote stuff. And I was like in jeans and sneakers, which is rare for me, admittedly, because I'll knock a door in a wedge. But I was dressed very down. And I showed up at the banquet and I said to Sister Virginia, listen, I could leave and go change. But if I had done that, I would have risked not getting here. And I didn't want to be here not to honor Minister Don. And I said, you look so regal and so beautiful. And she said, I'm simply a reflection of you. And I stood up a little bit taller. And I did go into that banquet hall where people were in suits and sequins, in my denim and my jacket to honor Minister Don. And so thank you for your generous words, and just know I'm a reflection of you. Congratulations on your book. Because I'm like a fan for real. What you didn't tell folks is we used to work in my office, and then we go all the way back to Chica Project. So we know each other for real.
For real.
And it has been glorious to watch your journey. And I love that moment. I rewatch that occasionally where Simone Sanders said to you at that Urban League convention, I know that voice and I know you. She was teaching or maybe in a fellowship at Harvard at the time. And so I just want to, share that with you to say that you never know who's listening. You never know who you are empowering with a word, who you are educating, or even who you are challenging. You gave me all these props for authentically showing up as myself. You do that every day. And so we salute you too. And I also just want to just talk about how awesome it is, to be a part of this Spark FM movement here. This is herstory, right? To have this station run, operated, and owned by a Black woman. And so I just want to acknowledge that. And if we do believe that Black lives matter, then that means that Black journalists matter, Black radio matters, Black stories matter. And so thank you for this platform and the opportunity, and just appreciate you both so much. So shout out to Danielle and the whole Spark FM movement.
Exactly. You made me cry, Ayanna. Like real tears. You made me cry.
Oh my God, I'm so proud of you.
Thank you so much. And so I do know that we don't have all of the time in the world with you. So I want to make sure that we definitely get into some of the questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Have
time to log on though. I want to make sure we get our folks on here. I see them starting to pile and log in. Okay, good stuff. All right.
Yes, they are.
Yes, I'm following your lead with your popping curls.
Thank you, boo. You know what? It's a challenge, and I do want to say, I was going to save this, but you mentioned it first. So you just, like, lace front is the thing today. Like, everybody has a lace front. Even if they have a head full of hair, they have a lace front.
Yeah.
You decided, I'm going to be authentically me. Like, how did you make that decision? Like, who was against it? Like, nah, we got lace fronts, boo. Like, you don't have to do it. I have uncles that are jealous of that shiny shave. So how did you embrace this? And what was the challenge behind you embracing it?
Okay, so let me just back up for a second. And I know we don't want to spend too much time here, but I do think it's important. So the first thing is, I just want to dispel a lot of myths. There are many different types of alopecia. And to be clear, alopecia is an autoimmune disease where your immune system attacks your hair follicles. So a lot of people who don't know the extent of my diagnosis think that I just lost the hair on my head. That is incorrect. I, in a 5-week period, lost all the hair on my head, face, and body because I have alopecia universalis or alopecia totalis. So I have no eyebrows. Shout out to Dollface, Tori, who microbladed my brows so that I didn't have that stress anymore. And these are, strip lashes that I put on every day. So that is my condition. And there are 7 million Americans that are living with alopecia, but there are different versions. Some people have alopecia areata, which means they just have patches. And when I say just, that's not to minimize it because it's very traumatic. These are things that are very difficult to cover up. And especially for women, it really challenges standard norms and conventional assumptions of what is beautiful and what is feminine. Okay. So this was, again, within a 5-week period, I lost all the hair on my head, face, and body. So I don't have alopecia areata, and I do not have traction alopecia, because a lot of people were in my DMs wondering if this was about my braids being too tight, being too tight. And please don't say that, because my braider was a magician. Shout out to Chenille at Princess's Hair Palace in Dorchester. And that was a transformative experience for me to wear my hair in a protective style and to wear it naturally. And so it was very hard. And bear in mind that this was all happening for me at a time when suddenly I had a national profile. It was in the middle of impeachment. So I went completely bald, completely. I'm in DC Monday through Friday, away from my family. I was alone, texting my husband a picture. This is my reality. My team worked with me. Angela Rides, a dear friend, she connected me with a stylist who customized a unit for me in 24 hours so that I could go to the House floor the next day and vote in the affirmative on articles of impeachment. And it was a beautiful unit, but it felt like a costume for me. I don't think I'm any more righteous or any more authentic because I choose to remain bald than those who choose to wear a unit. I mean, before my alopecia, please, back in the day, I was up at what's the spot in Randolph? The club out there is not Santa. Anyway, I'd be there on Latin night with my Sade ponytail, and you couldn't tell me anything. Okay, I've wore every kind of wig, extension, weave, Senegalese twist, braids. I've done it all. And none of those defined my righteousness or my femininity. They were just expressions, okay? So for me, being in the public eye, I felt that every morning putting on a wig, putting on brows, putting on lashes, all the things that I had to do just to make other people more socially comfortable, not even me, that did not serve me. And my pastor told me, and then we'll move on because I'm probably spending too much time on it, but my pastor told me that it was just God enlarging my territory. And that has been true because I was so worried about all the little girls I thought I was disappointing and betraying who found representation in my braids. And they would be wearing those t-shirts that said, my Congresswoman, wears braids, rocks a black leather jacket and a bold red lip. And so I was devastated that I was having to surrender that. Mm-hmm. And so I felt I had to go public because when you're Black and you're a Black woman and you're a Black woman in politics, everything you do is political, including your hair. And so ultimately, that's why I made the decision. And then I just want to shout out my Black diamond, my king, because my husband, he prefers me this way. He thinks that the hair was in the way, So, he's like, now you can appreciate those cheekbones and see those deep brown eyes, So I'm very fortunate. And then my husband never made me feel less feminine, less attractive. I will say, Tayla, that the vitriol that I have experienced has only amplified because just how I show up in the room is immediately militant and offensive to a lot of people. I think I've experienced amplified vitriol as if the audacity of me to show up in the world exactly as God has chosen to make me. It angers. I've been really shocked by how angry it makes a lot of people. So anyway, so that's the long and short of it. So, look, I get all types of people tell me I look like Steve Harvey and Charles Barkley, and they ask me what bathroom I use and how I identify and call me they go on and on and on and on and on. And all I internalize in my head is queen. Mm. What's the group in Black Panther? The door.
Yes. So, I don't. Maybe these comments, no, but I don't
pronounce it. But I just try to internalize that as often as possible because it has been challenging. But shout out to all those living with alopecia, showing up in the world, however feels the most authentic and comfortable for you, and those living with traumatic hair loss. Period.
Thank you. So you covered Motivational Monday completely. We can end the interview. I'm just joking.
I need hair to have a crown, y'all.
As the first Black woman to ever be elected to Congress from Massachusetts, what has been the major differences from city council to DC?
Okay, so I'll speak quickly. The first is that I miss community. I'm very intentional about being in community, but the nature of my job requires me to be in Washington 5 days a week. And although I'm not new to governing, I am new to Congress. And that was a blind spot that I had about just what that adjustment would be, to be away from my family, to be away from the district 5 days a week, okay? But I bring the district with me wherever I am. In committee hearings, every bill I write, every vote I cast. And so that's how I keep the community with me, is being intentional in actively engaging folks. I said the people closest to the pain should be closer to the power. And so I have to be very intentional about that because I don't have the opportunity organically, even pre-pandemic, to be in community the way that is so restorative and so necessary for me because I am in Washington 5 days a week. The other thing is that The reason I ran for Congress is because our district, the Massachusetts 7th, is one of the most unequal in the country. So this is a diverse, dynamic, vibrant district, 53% people of color, 40% foreign born, almost 30% single female headed households. 1 in 4 children have an incarcerated parent, just like I did. We're also one of the most undercounted census tracts in the country. So we have these systemic problems that are not naturally occurring, Tayla, okay? These were legislated. This has been about a lack of consciousness, political will, and really legislated harm disproportionately to marginalized communities. So I ran for Congress because systemic problems demand systemic solutions. Angela Davis talks about being radical. It just means to get to the root of something. And I wanted to be radical and get to the root. And so that's why I wanted to be in Congress, so that I could legislate. And I'm very proud that I have, the badge of honor of having introduced more bills than any other freshman member of Congress in this 116th Congress. And I won't get into all of that today. This isn't a one-off conversation. I'll be back. But so those have been the challenges: being away from family, not being able to be organically in community. So I have to be more intentional about that. And then Tayla, I never would have known that I would be walking into such a huge platform and profile. I never would have known that I would be walking in the midst of a federal government shutdown, an impeachment process, nearly on the precipice of war in the Middle East again, and then certainly not in the middle of a pandemic, and then a national reckoning on racial justice. Or that I would get to serve with giants like Elijah Cummings and John Lewis, and that I could count those people as mentors who poured into me. The difference that I think it has been for the district, and I would love to hear other people's feedback, is that people know what the Massachusetts 7th is. We are on the board, and that should have always been true. This is one of the most progressive seats in the country. And so we can't follow, we have to lead. And so I feel a responsibility to make sure that we are a pace setter when it comes to racial justice, that we are a pace setter when it comes to truth telling about these disparities that persist, because that is what we should be doing. To sit in the most progressive seat in the country and to have a progressive voting record, that's not a profile in courage, Tayla. That should be expected. That's the floor. That's not the ceiling.
Yes.
And so I hope that I've honored that.
You absolutely have. And you're not going to toot that horn, but I definitely will. 37 bills sponsored, over 500 co-sponsored. It's actually over 600. I think it's like 632 or something. Like, it's massive, the work that you've been able to accomplish since you left the city council. How can we help you help us?
Just y'all already do that, reach out to me, stay connected. I do have a district office. Again, everything is flat right now because of COVID. And I see that Luz was in here, so Luz can put in the comments how people can be connected to the district office if you have a need. But that is one way that you help me, because I write legislation in partnership with community. A lot of folks legislate top down, but I write laws grassroots, community up, to make sure that we're centering lived experiences. I'm not just trying to hear from community because I want to hear your struggle. I want to engage community because I want the benefit of your ideas. No community, no people has a monopoly on innovation and on genius. So it's about staying connected, asking questions, holding me accountable. And 2 easy things: complete the census. We are one of the most undercounted census tracts in the country. And the fact that we have 1 in 4 children that have an incarcerated parent, what that means is that their loved one is being counted in the census according to where they're being warehoused, not the community they're from. For every person that is not counted, we're missing out on $2,300 minimum of federal investment. Boston, out of the 100 largest cities in the country, is 9th in being hardest to count. So when we don't get complete counts, that means the federal government doesn't see you, they don't count you, and they don't hear you, and they don't invest in you. So if you want what you deserve when it comes to an investment in public education, in affordable housing, in language access, in Social Security, in Medicare, in Section 8 vouchers, in Head Start, in homes, in housing for individuals living with disabilities. You have got to complete the census, because you wonder if we're getting our equitable investment, and the reality is we're not, because our communities are divested from, they are under-resourced, and then because we don't have an accurate census count, we are not getting our federal investment that we need. You know, sometimes in our just something like 20,000 children have not been counted in the country. That means kids are going to go hungry because the federal government is not going to invest those dollars. So complete this. What can you do? Stay connected. Tell me about your challenges. Share your ideas. Complete the census. And then I do want folks to vote. And I'm not trying to shame anybody into voting. You know, voting should be something that feels like self-agency and determination and about power. Dr. King said that a voteless people are a powerless people. So I want you to know that even in the midst of these unprecedented times, you know, people are fearful of eviction, managing food insecurity, disproportionate impact of this pandemic, the Massachusetts 7th has been hardest hit. Our small businesses, our minority-owned businesses, not knowing if they'll be able to reopen. 41% of Black-owned businesses are projected to remain shuttered. So while you are managing all of that, just know that even in the midst of that, you are still powerful. Your voice still matters. Voting is the resistance too. If you don't like what's going on, that's the resistance too. So those are the three things I would say. Stay connected, complete your census, and then make sure you vote. And bear in mind, there's the primaries tomorrow. September 1st is the primary. All eligible voters have the option to vote by mail. If you requested a mail-in ballot and you have it in your hand still, shame on you. You need to drop that into, take it to City Hall if you need to. Drop it at a drop-in box in your community. People have the option to vote early. That was from August 22nd to August 28th. If you've already done that, thank you. Mm-hmm. And then tomorrow is primary day. And the polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And, you know, people should have developed a vote plan according to what feels the safest to you. But just there's a lot of emphasis on the top of the ticket, but there are competitive races in the State House that matter about criminal justice reform, that matter about climate justice, that matter about public education, that matter about housing justice. So all politics is local. So make sure that you are paying attention and that you are showing up tomorrow to cast your vote, to make sure your voice is being heard at this State House, not just at Capitol Hill. And the last thing I would say is, yes, I am on the ballot tomorrow. I'm running unopposed, but we are still out here running a campaign, engaging, because we don't organize just for elections. Mm-hmm. We organize to build community, Tayla. We organize to build power. And so we, in our primary, because of many of the people on this line right now, Tayla, we grew the Latino vote by 70%. We grew the student vote in some communities by 400%. 26% of the people that voted in our primary had never voted in a primary before. And don't get me started about those that are unhoused and the youth who organized, who mobilized, and those behind the wall. 250 Black men at MCI Norfolk who were organizing, shout out to the AACC, who were organizing from behind the wall. You know, so we don't want that movement to wane. That's bigger than any one election cycle.
And for anybody who does not know, in the state of Massachusetts, I don't know federally, in the state of Massachusetts, you have the right legally to let your boss know, I have to leave work. For all the essential employees, you can leave work to go vote, whether it's coming in late, whether it's leaving early. You cannot be penalized for utilizing your vote.
But you know what though? But it's so crazy that we even have to say, that's why, you know, one of the first bills we voted on, which is sitting on the desk of Mitch McConnell, who won't do his damn job, was to make Election Day a federal holiday. I mean, this shouldn't even be anything that people have to negotiate.
Exactly.
People don't vote not because they're like just cynical or apathetic. They don't vote because we don't make it easy. It needs to be more convenient. And the voter suppression and intimidation is rampant. I'm going to tell y'all, do not sleep on foreign interference and what is going on these social media platforms that you engage in. It is frightening. And many of us, without knowing, are amplifying and retweeting very dangerous disinformation. They are targeting Black communities to suppress our enthusiasm about voting. And I'd love to come on some other time and talk more about that, but just be mindful.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So one of the questions that came to me that I really I did not know how to answer. And so I ask you, the question was regarding Kennedy and the incumbent, and whether or not, like, are we voting legacy or are we voting long term? Like, Tayla, I don't know how to vote. And though I'm not here to ask you to tell us how to vote, like, how do you take this information that's being thrown at you, inundated with all of this knowledge, but you don't know, or maybe don't have the wherewithal to kind of like shift through it and find the truth and find what's best for me? Like, how do I vote my best interest when I feel like politicians are telling me what I want to hear to begin with?
So voting is very personal, and so you said it right when you said you're not expecting me to tell people how to vote. It is a very personal choice. Only you know when you cast that ballot, all that you're carrying with you, your hopes, your dreams, your expectations, who's counting on you in that moment that you cast that ballot. And so, it's up to you to determine, quite honestly, what do you believe is in your best interest? It is overwhelming. I know folks are being inundated with so much information, but it is a deeply personal decision. Think about those issues that matter most to you, and then do your homework about where candidates, and this applies to all races, where folks are on those issues. For me, the issues that will always be top of mind for me are like, what are you doing about the racial wealth gap? Pointedly, what are you doing about that? Where are you on transforming our criminal legal system? Those are, some of the issues that would be top of mind for me.
Mm-hmm. Would you ever run for presidency?
Is that your question or someone asked?
Mine.
I'm not answering that. Listen, I'm running for re-election. The primary is tomorrow, September 1st. I'm on the ballot. I hope to earn your support. But at the end of the day, whether you vote for me or not, just vote. Make your voice heard. And Tayla, just know this: I'm never obsessing about or calculating about a position or a title. That really is not how I move. I'm focused on impact. Okay. I see a question popping up, and I know my team is telling me they only have a couple of minutes, but I got folks asking me about what we're doing about reentry. And so I do feel like I need to speak to that. Can I speak to that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So for those of you that don't know, and I see my lighting is shifting. Am I looking too dark in here right now? Okay. The room too dark. I mean, I can never be too dark. Melanin is everything. But I introduced this People's Justice Guarantee Resolution because I'm an abolitionist. I'm for decarceration. My father cycled in and out of the criminal legal system for 14 years because he was battling substance use, and he was self-medicating to treat a lifetime of trauma. And similar to our Suffolk County DA, shout out to Rachel Rollins, I'm for decarceration, and that means decriminalizing substance use, low-level offenses, homelessness, mental health. Why do I have to introduce legislation like justice for incarcerated moms? Why are they incarcerated? Why am I having to introduce legislation for the compassionate release of pregnant women during COVID? Why are they there? We have to radically reimagine. We can have healthier, safer communities without promoting a punitive carceral state that destabilizes families and communities. That's why the census is important, because if we're investing in communities, That's why budgets that actually value Black lives is important. If we are investing in more social workers rather than school police, then people are not going to be on a pathway to confinement. So in my People's Justice Guarantee, one of the things that I call for is, one, while you're incarcerated, you have access to the ballot. Secondly, there's many things. I'm just going to lift up two for this person that's asking, and that we restore Pell Grants. My father, while he was incarcerated, he was able to attain 2 advanced degrees. When he came out, almost his PhD, became a professor of journalism and a published author. Okay. And so those are some of the things that I'm like, that education that's critical to support reentry. And then there's other work that I'm doing to combat the discrimination that folks experience on the outside. 30% of those being released from correctional facilities, just so y'all know, they're being released to homeless shelters. So it's disingenuous for us to say, when you come out, you know, be prepared to get on the grid in a legitimate way to make a positive contribution when people don't even have a home. That's disingenuous. And we know the number one driver of recidivism is unemployment. And so how can you secure employment when you don't even have shelter? And then because of other policies that don't support the successful reunification of family, you know, our family members that live in public housing, they can't even reunite because they risk eviction.
Yep.
So those are some of the barriers that I'm looking to combat. And there's more that I'd love to say about that on the licensing side and things like that, to make sure that when folks come out, if they are experiencing barriers to employment, that we're supporting them in their entrepreneurialism and being their own bosses, you know, so that they can then create jobs and opportunities for others that are experiencing those barriers to employment. It's also why I'm passionate about restaurants. That's one of the industries that is where folks can be gainfully employed that often experience barriers to employment, including those with quarries. So Tayla, just have me back. And what I think we should do is, Danielle, if it's cool with you, is, you know, either have a dedicated time, you know, once a month or something where I come on, and we can do dedicated segments on issue areas.
Okay.
Like, hey, just come on and talk about what you're doing around criminal justice reform. I don't call it that. I call it transform the criminal legal system, because our justice system is anything but just. So I don't even call it that. But we can just break it up by issue area, because I know. Okay.
Is there a question, or do we have a time for one question from an audience member?
Yeah.
So this is regarding Social Security 40D on the federal level, which every state gets 40 cents per dollar that a parent pays into child support. And here in Massachusetts, we know that that's mainly a father who does not, or has to fight for father's rights. And so the question was, how do you plan, or how can you work to change the law when it comes to equal parental rights when it comes to fathers?
Okay, so the short answer is, and I always keep it transparent, I don't know. You know, so I'd like to come back and talk more about that, because first and foremost, on the federal level right now, as hard as I'm legislating and as hard as I'm working, even if I can get a bill to the floor, which requires 218 co-sponsors, if I can get it voted on the floor and out of the House, the Senate is log jamming everything, which is why I'm working to regain control of the Senate, and also working to grow sort of members of like minds and progressive values who would share a commitment to equal parental rights in the House. I also want to know if there's something that could be done on the state level. I know they said Social Security, and that's federally specifically, but I'd love to know if there's some reforms and things that I can lend my voice to and be supportive of on the state level, and then replicate that federally. So I need to know more about it. I don't know what levers are available to me, and I don't want to misinform, but I will say that I'm committed to that. And if you can pass that information along to my team, that constituent, even if they're not a constituent, whoever they are, and then we can follow up. Because I'm going to tell y'all, 12 of the bills that I've written around housing and tenant protections and strengthening the opportunity for home ownership, because Black home ownership, this is the lowest it's been since the introduction of the fair housing laws.
Yep.
And redlining continues to persist. And so I'm working to modernize the Community Reinvestment Act to stop that. Out of the 12 housing laws that I've written, 8 of those were written in partnership with community. My People's Justice Guarantee was written with community. My workers' rights legislation was written with community. So whoever that person is that asked that question, thank you. And please make sure that we get your information so we can follow up and we can do something about it. And I just want y'all to know that is for real with me. Okay, I wrote a bill, the Andrew Kiersey Act, that was directly informed by a family whose family member was in custody by police. They were having a heart attack. Law enforcement refused to call medical professionals for intervention, and that brother died. And so we then, based on what we learned from them, we wrote a federal law, the Andrew Kiersey Act, named for that brother, that would hold law enforcement criminally negligent and liable for not seeking medical intervention when someone is in their custody and is under duress. So I'm just offering that. My end push-out bill to stop the criminalization of Black girls in our schools. My bill counseling not over criminalization in our schools, counseling over criminalizations in our schools. That was directly informed by the people in Massachusetts 7 who said, you know, we have more school police than we do school nurses, social workers, guidance counselors. We need trauma-informed learning communities, restorative justice practices. We need for our children to not be criminalized for their skin, our girls to not be criminalized for their hair, for how their bodies are shaped, just for how we show up. So I'm offering those examples so you know that I'm for real about that you all are powerful and you can partner with me in actually writing legislation. So let's follow up.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. We thank you. We love you. We appreciate you. Ayanna Pressley, my sister in service. I wish I could hug you. This is my hug to you.
Yeah. And I wanted you and Danielle to know, you can't see it. Zoom drives me crazy because you have a statement t-shirt on and can't nobody see it. But I'm wearing a t-shirt by a Black-owned company called Mess in a Bottle, and it says, as strong as the woman next to me. So I wore that specifically for you and Danielle. Thank y'all for your strength. Thank you for your righteousness. Thank you for laboring in love for our community and for this platform to keep folks empowered and engaged. And don't forget, tomorrow's primary day, September 1st. Please make your voice heard and make sure you complete that census so you can get what you deserve.
Amen. Ashe, ashe. Whew, that was a lot. I'm definitely, we're going to go ahead and set that up so we can have you back on once a month so we can talk about these issues and properly inform community on the work that you're doing and the work that they can be engaged in.
All right.
Thank you.
I look forward to it. Bye.
Lord have mercy. Can I tell you about my feelings right now? So, first and foremost, not only am I appreciative for her time, I just appreciate the work that she's doing. I just want to reiterate one more time. So 37 bills that herself, her team have sponsored, over 500 co-sponsoring of bills. Talk about getting the work done. Talk about doing the work. And I've taken a look over the last few days at some of the bills that she sponsored, not only the ones that she discussed, but some of the other ones that she did not discuss. And sis has definitely been putting in the work. Things that you and I probably wouldn't even think about because they don't affect us directly. They probably don't even affect us indirectly. And it makes me wonder, like, what have people been doing politically if in this short period of time she's been able to accomplish all of this when we have career politicians that have been in the building for decades? Can you imagine her accomplishments 10 years from now, 12 years from now? What society can look like if we get our vote out and start voting in people like Ayanna, who have our best interests at heart, that's willing to partner with community and drive that force. She said, not from the top down, but from the bottom up. And I think that is important to understand. When politicians come into our neighborhoods only to ask us for their reelection vote, she is out in community asking, what is it that we need to change? How can I help you? Help us. I'm super emotional right now. And I'm emotional because honestly, I gave up. Like when you see everything that's going on in the media and in the news, and you see how we are being attacked, and you see how we are being killed in the streets, and you pay attention to media, it's disheartening. It's depressing. It's sad. And then you hear that reassuring voice, like the light at the end of the tunnel that's like, listen, we shall overcome. I'm super appreciative. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Spark, for the opportunity. I'm ready. I'm ready to not just get out the vote, but I'm ready to do the work. And I hope you all are as well. We know on the federal level that Trump has altered the day and time that census was going to end, and he wants to stop that by months. Why? Because he does not want you to be counted. And so it's important for you to fill out the census, for you to be mindful of, I'm gonna be transparent, right? So I'm a conspiracy theorist. I'm like, why are they trying to track me? This is actually my first time filling out census. I haven't done it in the past because I was too paranoid. And I can imagine, and I'm a citizen of the United States. And so I can imagine what somebody who is currently undocumented may feel like. But for me, I filled in like child 1. I didn't even do name. First name was child, last name was 1. Child 2, child 3. I didn't even put names. I didn't even put my name, adult 1, with the address and the rest of the information. But still, you understand that in my household, these are the people that exist. And so for those that are listening now or later, as far as census is concerned, I don't know whether or not they need the children's names, but I definitely filled it out unanimously by the way that I told you. And I didn't even put their birthday. Like I put the year in which they were born, because that's not important though. You need to know the year that they were born so they can, be mindful of high school and college and, the free lunch program. So I'll give you that. I'll give you the year that they were born. But I didn't think that they needed the, social security numbers and birthdays and this and that and who's their daddy, where they daddy live at. Like that was a little bit too much for me. But what you do need to know is that these are these 3 children that exist. And these are 3 children that are going to be in a school system. Doesn't matter which one. No, it doesn't. But please be mindful of us as a family. And so I urge you to also fill out your census and to get what you deserve. Your census is, in a sense, a demand to get what you deserve. And $2,300, that's a lot of money. So you have to think about it like you personally are getting $2,300 for you and your children, your grandmother, your auntie, whoever else is in the house, because you wanted that $1,200 stimulus check. So imagine what the census can do for the $2,300 in resources. I'm a little flustered. I'm a lot of flustered right now. Like I can't even get my thoughts right because I'm all in my feelings. Ayanna touched on a lot of things that we as community know, as far as the $8 that Black Boston's net worth is. We know that white families have $247,000 net worth, and that's primarily because of the education that we lack regarding home ownership. I was speaking to a young lady the other day, and she was like, Taylor, like my credit is less than perfect, but I don't feel like I shouldn't be able to buy a house if my credit isn't perfect. Like she expressed sincere frustration because she's like, this doesn't make sense. How do I buy a house if I don't have perfect credit? Like, how do Black people ever get ahead? And I'm like, listen, this is the problem that people have had for generations. And Ayanna said it, like these are systematic problems. These were legislative issues that created the space on purpose. And so here we are today trying to do the right thing. Woosah. Absolutely woosah. With that being said, as far as news is concerned, there is so much going on in the news, but I just want to give a huge shout out to the baby who recently was accepted to 64 colleges, full ride across the board, and then chose a historically Black college. I love it. Shout out to that baby. 64 colleges. It was difficult for me to get into one college. I got one acceptance letter. And there were so many questions that I wanted to ask Ayanna. Like I wanted to ask her regarding like education and whether or not a lot of the financial issues that we have as Black people is because we don't have those dinner-time conversations. We are not at dinner with our family having financial conversations, credit conversations. And so I was wondering, like, how can we alter curriculum? Like on a federal level, how do we alter curriculum to properly educate people on how to create in the future like if you understand at a young age how to balance the checkbook, when you get older, you have less issues when it comes to savings or splurging or not knowing how to budget because you learned it in high school. So it's something that you use every single day. My main question was like, how do we take a look at curriculum that specifically for Massachusetts are like the core? We have the core here in Massachusetts, and the core sucks. Like it has nothing to do with you leaving high school and actually becoming an adult in the real world. So how do we on a federal level alter curriculum so that way we can teach the babies now so when they're older, they're not having the issues that adults are having today? Over 90% of COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. had contributing factors. As of now, it's less than 10%. So the mortality rate for COVID-19 across our nation of the United States is less than 10%. There's less than 10% of people dying from COVID-19. That's not people that are getting it, but people who are contracting COVID and passing away from COVID. And they're saying that over 90% of COVID-19 deaths in the U.S. had contributing factors. The issue had been called underlying, which is not accurate. They are contributing conditions. And so just saying like, someone had COVID-19, they died of COVID, but they had an underlying heart condition. It's like, no, that was a contributing factor to why they died. For 6% of deaths, COVID-19 was only cause mentioned for the deaths, but these conditions were the reason why people were actually dying. It wasn't because of the COVID, it was because of the contributing medical causes, including influenza, pneumonia, respiratory failure, hypertensive disease, diabetes, cardiac arrest, heart failure, renal failure, as well as intentional and unintentional injury, poisoning, and other adverse events. And so I say all that to say the CDC quietly update the COVID numbers to admit that only 6%, which equates to 153,504 deaths recorded, actually died from COVID, and that out of that 153%, only 9,210 was just COVID related. And so when you take a look at those numbers, that's a very different story, and it gives way to why people were out on Talbot having a party. I'm being an ass. I'm joking. Fuel to the fire, baby. Fuel to the fire. In other news, there was 9,400 people that signed a petition to replace a statue with Chadwick Boseman. And can we have a real conversation? I don't know if this is too soon, but I think Childish Gambino would be an amazing replacement to Chadwick Boseman in the up and coming Marvel movies, as well as Black Panther 2. And I know it's too soon. Like, I know my baby is still warm, but I really do think that, how do you feel? Do you think Childish Gambino would be able to play that role as perfectly as Chadwick? I'm interested in your answer, because that's the only person, like, I cannot see anyone else. I can't see anyone else filling that role at this time. Or maybe it's a actor that we have not been introduced to yet. But for the actors that we do have and that we do know about, he's the only one. He definitely is the only one. I want to give a huge shout out. So there is a bank, a black bank, two black banks that merged together so they can create economic wealth in the Black community. And so they're giving home loans, they're giving business loans, they're giving entrepreneur loans, they're giving out 501(c) philanthropic loans. And this is huge, because when you have like the one bank that has, 7 banks across the nation, 2 of them here in Boston, with under 13 in the last 5 years that have given Black families or families in general loans. And so I know somebody who works on the inside. So I've reached out. Please, if you have any connections, I've reached out to Terry. I reached out to Kehoe. Like, I've reached out to the press. I've reached out to Terry directly. I have done my due diligence to have a real conversation of the bank system, why they still operate like it's 1998, why they still, charge astronomical fees, especially to people in communities that they already know don't make more than $30,000 a year. Like, why would you do that to us? And your hub is located here in Boston. Like, where's some type of grace when employees are complaining about the company that they work with, and I don't even have a bank account here because of the way their business practices? I'm just wondering, like, how can we have a real conversation so you can be like these 2 banks that merged together in order to give families opportunity, but you here in Boston, less than 13 in 5 years? That's home loans. That's car loans. That's business loans. You don't believe me? Go to One United and try and get you a home loan. I'll wait. Just like that baby is waiting. The Black Power girl, Mona, they call her Mona, but she's actually a real person. I've met her on Facebook, and the photograph that she took, I want to say it was almost 10 years ago. So she took a photograph. It was commissioned by this gentleman, and they asked this, One United Bank asked this gentleman to paint, this strong Black woman with an afro. And he was like, oh, you know what? I have a picture of a strong Black woman with an afro. Let me paint her. And down to the headband, my love, the crisscross of the woman's headband, it is in the painting of the Mona for the One United Bank card photo. It's you put them side by side, there is no one on earth who's going to say, oh, no, that is not her. Unless you take it to court like she has, and you're looking at a white jury that's like, no, it doesn't look alike, even though all Black people look the same. The resemblance is insane, and it's not a similarity. How did the dude that took my picture was the same dude that you commissioned for a painting, but yet that looks just like me? And so if you didn't know, now you know. With a safety, in other news, they're saying that there is a concern that 60% of companies requiring a face mask of their employees, like there's complaints that the face mask isn't doing enough. The face mask isn't keeping us safe. The face mask, especially people that are wearing bandanas, like, you might as well not even wear a face mask. And so they're saying even though companies are requiring you to wear a face mask, a lot of employees don't feel safe because they don't feel like the face masks are working, nor do they believe that the air filtration systems have been properly updated to filter out some of this disease and viruses. And so people don't want to go back to work right now because they're kind of liking their PJs. They like a t-shirt and a Zoom. But more importantly, the questions that have not been answered are as far as ventilation systems are concerned. Like, how are we addressing the ventilation system? Just because you wear a mask walking around the office, when you get back to your desk, you take your mask off, you sneeze, all those particles are still in the air. The vent is here blowing on me. So I'm getting germs from someone who's on the 3rd floor, 5th floor, 18th floor. And even though I have a face mask on, how safe am I really when I have a mother that's elderly and a child that's, a child? And so I think that definitely is a great question that a lot of companies are not considering. I want to give a huge shout out to the companies that are just like, listen, stay home. Like, indefinitely stay home. I recently watched a mini documentary looking at commercial real estate. And just like Ayanna stated, that more than 40% of Black owned businesses here in Boston will remain shuttered. They are saying, like, as far as corporations are concerned, a lot of these businesses are not opened back up. They're paying the cleaning people. They're still paying rent. They're still paying the electric and the gas and whatever have you for utilities. And even though there's no one in the building, they're still paying for this. And so for small businesses that aren't making multi-million dollars, this is an expense that they cannot continuously pay. And so what does that look like reimagined? What does that look like, 2-3 years from now, when normalcy is everyone works from home, where co-workspace is now the norm? Remember when everybody was thinking like co-workspace, like, why would I do that? Why would I pay to go there for Wi-Fi and a quiet room? And it seems to be like that's where this life is directing us into our new norm. One of the things that I want us to be mindful of is, you guys know I'm a conspiracy theorist. This is nothing new, right? So when it comes to how COVID has affected us as a society, a lot of the other conspiracy theorists are talking about the financial aspect of it all and how, we ran out of coins. You have to pay with exact cash, or you have to pay with a card because they can't give you change. And if they give you change, like, somebody's losing. It's either the company or you are losing out on a couple pennies and nickels because they don't have exact change to give you. Aside from that, it's like more companies don't want to do that hand-to-hand exchange as far as money. So they're encouraging you to pay and taking off the, minimum $10. It's just like, if you just pay with a card, we'll waive that fee. That's fine. And so what does that look like? And are other people concerned with the fact that we are now looking into Bitcoin? And I forgot who it was. It just came to mind. Who is accepting Bitcoin as like a new norm. And so, like, this fiat money that we already have is already fake. That dollar, this $2 bill is nothing but paper. It's fiat. Like, it has no real value at all. Where once upon a time, we used to trade gold. We don't trade gold anymore. We don't barter goods anymore. We play with this fiat money, even though we're in $1 trillion of debt. And now from this fiat to, think about all the movies that you ever seen about having that chip inside of you, and this social monitoring chip, this financial chip, this chip that gives you all of your medical history and everything that you are and are not. China is actually already pre-engaged in this. Like, they're already doing this. And here we are in America now considering it. I don't want to say now considering it, because when I was on air years ago, it was still like people were getting chips then. People are still getting chipped now. They're chipping their pets in order to find them and have all of their medical records all on one place. Parents want to do it so in case their kids ever get kidnapped. We are in different times, baby. Completely different times. And I'm not sure where this will lead us. Herman Cain, the real Uncle Ruckus. In this article, they call him Zombie Herman Cain, tweets that coronavirus is not as deadly as the media says. And I think it's an attack on Herman Cain because he is Uncle Ruckus. But the truth of the matter is, we just read the article about how the actual deaths of this over 100,000, the actual deaths from COVID is 9,000. Is he truly lying? Is he say what you want about the man, but I personally take COVID extremely serious. I have an elder grandmother. I have my elders that I love. I have my children that I adore. I am taking COVID seriously, but I have a love-hate relationship with COVID. Can I be transparent? I wake up and I'm scared and I'm like, oh my God, where's my mask? I just want to make sure that I don't get sick. I don't want to get nobody else sick. And then I turn around and by the middle of the day, I'm like, yo, I'm about to take this mask off because A, it doesn't work. B, I'd rather just get it. It's like getting the flu, right? And if I don't have any pre-existing conditions, there's a 97% chance that I am not going to die from it. I'm going to live 97%. And by the end of the day, I'm like, yo, the government's just trying to bamboozle us. So I have a real love-hate relationship when it comes to COVID. And I don't say that jokingly because I understand and I know people whose family members have passed. So I'm not joking about it. This is my reality. It's a love-hate freaking relationship with this virus, and I'm tired of it. And I do believe that Herman Cain, it's not as deadly as the media portrays it to be. Just like black on black crime isn't as insane as the media portrays it to be. Just like everything else that the media blows up isn't what is actually reality. In other news, a Maryland state official fired after sharing posts supporting alleged Kenosha shooting. One meme read, "Don't be a thug if you can't take a slug." Another appeared to show an image of an alleged shooting by Kyle Rittenhouse with smiley faces. When you get into second place of Wisconsin's annual quick draw competition, I go back. I don't know if you guys remember the conversation that we had last week, but I go back to how do we alter the criminal justice system and how do we alter the police in ways in which that work for us. And we do that by, let's do it again. All right. Let's do it again for those who didn't hear it last week. First and foremost, you have to take a test. Just like you take a personality test, you take this personality test. And through these questions, we find out whether or not how biased are you. And based on this test, your biases is what disqualifies you from moving forward, because you're going to be around disabled people. You're going to be around Muslim people. You're going to be around Black people. You're going to be religious and ideologies. You are going to be around all of these people that you cannot have a pre-bias about. If you do not hit this mark, then you cannot work as a police officer. Second round, during that second round, we put you Men in Black, Will Smith shooting everybody, and instead he shoot the little white girl with the books, and he run down to break down how the little white girl with the books is most likely the one that's a criminal because of, and then he gave all these factors. So we put you in this simulation, and based on how many people that look pretty innocent, aka how many Black people you shoot, you do not move forward. So we see how you act under pressure and see if your bias shoots the wrong person. That's number 2. Number 3, oh, congratulations, you became a police officer. Well, guess what? It's not 6 weeks like it typically is. We're going to lengthen that a little bit more. You're going to have to take some not only bias training, you're going to have to racial justice training and all ACEs training, and just understand who you are as an individual, what your biases are. Like, even, I don't care if your family is diverse with every nationality, every language, every religion, you still somewhere have a bias, right? Let's find out what that is. Let's work through that trauma and let's make you a better person. From there, yay, here's your badge. You have to get insurance. Just like medical professionals have insurance. If I am a doctor and I cut off the wrong titty, medical malpractice, where my money at? You get fined, you get penalized, you yourself, not the department. So you have to get insurance. Not only that, you have to register, because Tayla Andre, if I mess up in the state of Massachusetts, they will take away my Georgia license, even though what I did wasn't in Georgia. So why on earth, if just a real estate agent, just to sell a house, just to buy a house, I have to do continuing education, I have to register, and I have to all my criminal background, like whether it's ethical, unethical, as far as real estate, I still get questioned, even if it's out. Like, for instance, I get into a fight, I end up shooting someone. I have to go before my real estate board and explain to them why I now have this criminal history. So it's not just some unethical BS that happened within real estate, it's period. I have to account for all of my actions. And so if I'm buying damn houses, how you have the ability to take life and you still don't have a universal registry system? So now you have insurance, now you have this universal registry. And if you do, and not only that, making it easier for people to report crimes against police officers. Don't make me, Tayla Andre, come into the police station to write up a report. Make it easier for me to write a report so I'm not coming out the police station looking like a snitch. Now you just put my life in danger because I'm over here snitching on you. As well as, what was the last one? Y'all remember the last one? I can't remember the last one. This is my system to police officers that I believe that we should be following as far as protocol is concerned. And it's not like you don't get to choose. All police officers, all departments across the nation, this is the new protocol. This is our new norm. And so since we can, drastically have new norms when it comes to education, we drastically have new norms when it comes to the workforce development. Like, COVID has showed us that all of this thing that you say is impossible, all of these things that you say take time, all of these things that you can't just change things overnight. COVID proved differently. So for me, it's no longer an excuse. Previously, there were already excuses given over and over and over again, right? Kayla say, it's like getting the flu, ? COVID can attack any part of your body. Healthy people are still trying to recover 7 months after recovery, out of breath, hair falling out, can't work. The mortality rate is still a lesser concern. You're absolutely right. And not just that, we covered this last week about how some of these athletes that contracted COVID can't even perform the ways that they did previously because COVID has affected their lungs and affected other aspects of their body. And so I do not diminish the seriousness of the virus at all. What I'm saying is Herman might be onto something regarding the media blowing it out of proportion, especially when the CDC never formally came out and said, listen, after we reevaluated the numbers, these are the real numbers. It took for, one of us, it took for a citizen to go through and see, who died of COVID that did not have an underlying condition. And then based on that, these are the numbers. So it wasn't the CDC that came out with that. It was somebody who was just like, yo, listen, I'm gonna hold you accountable because these numbers ain't adding up. And so I'm not disputing, refuting the seriousness. I'm saying Y'all hear what I'm saying? In other news, but as far as like police, I think we definitely have a lot of work to do, and with a lot of work that needs to be done, we need to act in swiftness. Just like we acted swiftly with education, we acted swiftly taking people out of the workplace. Why are we not doing the same? Because we definitely have a national problem across the nation. People are protesting and bike riding and signing petitions and holding their legislators accountable. And so why can't we quickly alter what need? Like, we know these problems exist. Change them exponentially. I do want, because we have not, take a moment of silence to give Chadwick Boseman the respect that he deserves. He has altered the culture crazy. Because of him. Maybe he didn't write Wakanda, right? But everything that he put into being our king reminded us just how dope we are. His grace, his poise. I know a lot of us women were like, yo, like, that's my husband. My husband holds himself like that. My husband speaks like that. They be like, we had a new idea of what a husband looked like after Chadwick was on screen as our king. And so, and not just that, Jackie Robinson, what was this other movie that recently came out? I watched it. It blew my mind. The one when he was a police officer and it was like the corrupt police. Dope movie. Like, his performances were amazing. And I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine who said, I'm here to serve a purpose and I don't have too many birthdays left. And it really scared me and it really hurt my heart, because I'm like, I'm not ready for you to leave. I'm not ready. Like, why would you say that? But the truth of the matter is, some people truly do come into our lives for a reason, season, or a lifetime. And Chadwick was here for a reason and for a season, and his lifetime was not long, but the impact that he has made within the time that he was here was so impactful. It was like he gave us double his year's worth, if that makes sense. I know a lot of people attacked him because of the videos and photos that he posted, and it was like Crack Panther, not Black Panther, because his face was sunken in. When you look at the videos of him talking about the children in the cancer hospital, waiting for Black Panther to come out, and you just think about what he was going through. Like for 5 seconds, lady, think about when we have cramps. We have cramps and we're like, I don't want to go to work. He produced action film, shot. Like, it wasn't sitting back chilling. Like, he was actually, Thurgood Marshall was another movie. He was out here actually working through cancer, and you never know what somebody else is going through. You never know someone else's struggle. It was something that was kept under wraps. I pray to God, and I've been praying that he was able to impregnate his wife before he died so that he could still live on through his child. My heart goes out to him. My heart goes out to his family. He is now an ancestor. If you have an altar, put him up on there. Lift him up. Don't forget about him. If you ever saw, what's the Disney movie about the ofrendo? I forgot. Lila? No. Hold on. Y'all know, because y'all always be putting stuff in the comments. 21 Bridges, Paula. Yes, that movie was absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. But in other news, California Senate is ready to consider reparations for slavery. You want to know what reparations for slavery needs to be? It needs to be like, we'll talk about that. Need to be a whole conversation for a whole day, because it is 12:42. We come off air at 1, and that really, like, I have a whole hour plan. Just like I got a plan for the police, I have a real plan for reparations. And you want to know what made me think about that? Dave Chappelle, where he was like, I'm rich. You know, like, people were out there buying Cadillacs. They were buying all types of nonsense. And the truth of the matter is, it's a real thing. Like, studies have shown that if you come from poverty and you have a poverty mentality and you win $50 million lottery ticket, in the next 5 years, you will be broke. And it's not because, you know, they took 50% in taxes. It's because you don't know how to manage money, because you don't have any real respect for money. You don't understand money. And so if you have a poverty mentality and then you're given an opportunity to have an abundance of wealth, you honestly don't know what to do with it. And so for me, I truly believe that the plan that we should have for like reparations does not need to be monetary. It's resources for me. Because when you take a look at a lot of these entrepreneurs, like, let's take, for instance, Spark FM. Shout out to Danielle. She crowdfunded. She got community to be involved in order for us to have this dope ass equipment, for us to be able to have this amazing space. It's resources. We as Spark FM still need resources. Danielle still needs resources. It's not necessarily money, but it's access to things that typically we don't have access to. It's mentors that mentors that can teach us things that we didn't know or don't have direct access to that knowledge. It's resources for me. It's always been about resources. But I do and have in the past, over and over again, those billions of dollars that we gave to the banks, that we gave to the car companies. Had we given that money to the head of household, if I did the numbers, my math correctly, you guys know I'm horrible at math, except for when it comes to child support, it would have been over $100,000 for every head of household. And it would have, remember the stimulus checks that we got? What was it, like a 300? Bush gave us $300 or something like that. It was ridiculous. And they were like, oh, it's a stimulus check. My dude, you just paid half of my car insurance. Thank you. Like that, it didn't stimulate anything but my disengagement for politics. But had we in 2008 gave that stimulus package, not to the car companies, not to the banks, but to the people, every head of household would have received over $100,000. Every single person would have received over $60,000. That would have been a real damn stimulus. People would have paid off their student loans. Sallie Mae would have got her money. People would have paid off their mortgages. We would not have seen a collapse in real estate. We would not have seen the spike in unemployment like that. None of that would have been, none of it. We wouldn't have seen any of that. Because when people do have the money, they are responsible. What state was it that they were giving $1,000 a month to residents? It was a pilot in California. So a pilot in California, a city in California was engaged in a pilot. And in this pilot, they were giving people $1,000, but they put it on a card so they could track what they were spending it on. And they found that more than 80% of the people were spending it on like bills or Walmart or Target. It was like a small percent, like a 17% on self-care. And yes, self-care, like people were going to the nail salon and to the hair salon, the things that make you feel good, that self-care that gives back, that pours back into you so you could pour back into your family. And I was thinking to myself, like, how many people, how many people don't indulge in self-care because they put their family first? And we as women, we are notorious. We are notorious for putting ourselves last. The husband come first, the kids come first, the damn dog comes first. And then we allow ourselves the luxury to be mindful of our needs. And so there were a higher end of women-led households that were a part of this study. And you know what? It's been about 8 months. And so I'm interested. I definitely will take a look at that and bring that back, circle that back tomorrow. But for me, it made me think, when people have it, they're going to do the right thing. And that's who we should have gave the damn money to. And that's what reparations should look like. It should look like having access to things that we don't have access to now. The national struggle with civil rights and unrest after the most recent shooting of a Black man by police, the California State Senate advanced the proposal to study reparations for slavery. After a bipartisan 33-3 vote, the Senate passed the measure on Saturday. Next, it moves into Assembly, which must act by the end of the next legislative session on Monday. Let's be clear. Chattel slavery, both in California and across the nation, birthed a legacy of racism, and racial harm and inequity that continues to impact the conditions of Black life in California and across the nation, said Holly Mitchell of Los Angeles. Bolstering her claim, she cited disproportionate homelessness. Oh, Lord. I don't know what word that was. Homelessness. In the Black community, higher rates of unemployment, incarceration, the higher health risks during the coronavirus pandemic. According to reports, the panel would be expected to conduct a detailed study of the impact of slavery in California and then make recommendations to the legislature by June 2023. The recommendations would detail how much compensation would be awarded, how should it be awarded, and who should be eligible for the compensation, which makes it extremely difficult because then we have to have the honest conversation about how many Negroes were actually Indigenous Americans and how many Indigenous Americans were then labeled Negroes, so they did not have access to this number that the United States gives you as this Indigenous person with access to exemption from taxes, as well as rights to gain land and property without all of this bureaucracy and red tape, because you're sovereign, baby. And because you're sovereign, you continue to be sovereign. And we're sorry that we stole your land. This is not our land is your land. My land is your, from California to we have to have that honest conversation. And so I will be following this, because according to legislation analysis, Texas, New York, and Vermont have considered granting reparations to African Americans for years. Those reparations can take form in either cash, housing assistance, lower tuition, student loan forgiveness, job training, or investment into the Black community. And again, the resources. So for me, reparation looks like I get to go to whatever college I want to go to, and y'all pay for that. Reparation looks like I get to go to whatever trade school I want to go to, and y'all pay for that. When you take a look at the reparations when it comes to incarcerated persons that are then released, I was going to say on their own recognizance, but that's only police officers. When they are then released, they're given... Who was the man who was in jail for 43 years, and they gave, after fighting for wrongful conviction, he walked out and they gave him I truly believe it was $1. I really believe they awarded him a freaking dollar for imprisoning him for decades. We don't even do right when it comes to reparations in that aspect. Why you think they really gonna give us reparations for real, for real? We reviewed your case and found that we messed up. We imprisoned you for decades. You have to fight us to get your, you lost your entire life. You lost being able to go to college, being able to have your first kiss, your first child. You're now 40-something, 50-something, 60-something years old. Your life is damn near over. At this time that you just got released, people are retiring. You haven't even begun life, and I can't start life because Ayanna just said it when she said that people who are released from prison automatically are released into a homeless shelter. One of the things that she didn't mention, but I know she's aware of, is the difficulties trying to get an ID. Because, you know, in order for you to get an ID, you have to have two forms of proof of identification. You have to have an address of where you live. Now, all of a sudden, you can't even get a driver's license. You can't get a state ID. And they don't make it any easier. Like, I think if you're in prison, or if you spent time in prison and they're about to release you, why don't you get an ID upon your release? Yo, it'd be stuff like this that blows my mind because it's common sense. But yet we are so hopped up, and this is across the board. Where was I? I was at CVS. And because of this whole crazy everybody's on drugs nonsense, like, you have my information in the system. You know how old I am. You know how many times I may or may not pick up Tylenol with a Tylenol 3. There's only 5 in the bottle. Like, where's the common sense? There's no ODing on Tylenol. Like, it just I don't get reoccurring Tylenol 3s. And for me, it's just like, where is the common sense? Across the board. Wrapping up this reparation conversation, Senator Stephen Bradshaw, Democrat, who supported the bill and said he wished the measure was more than just a study. If the 40 acres and a mule was a promise to free slaves, was actually delivered to the descendants of those slaves today, we would all be billionaires, Bradford said. I hear far too many people say, well, I didn't own slaves. That was so long ago. Well, you inherited wealth. You can inherit debt. You can inherit the debt that you owe to African Americans. Amen. Ashe. And so Stephen Bradshaw, Democrat, who supported the bill, thank you, because that is so true. Had we gotten our 40 acres and a mule, we were already doing the work. Sidebar. All of the patents that took place in those early days were Black people that were doing the work, that found an easier way to get things done. But because we as Black people could not submit patents, our master was like, oh, Toby, that looks really easy. Thank you for giving me this idea. I'm now a billionaire. You get nothing but an easier way to do my work. With that said, we have come to the top of the hour. I am Tayla Andre. Waking Up with Tayla Andre has absolutely nothing to do with the time of day that we link up, but about waking up your third eye with unorthodox conversations leading to universal consciousness. Today was one of the most exciting interviews for me because, as Ayanna has told you, I was an aide. I was an intern in her office. I loved her then. I love her now. I was an active participate in Chica Project, and now I'm just on like the leadership side of Chica Project. But for over 7 years, maybe 8 years now, Ayanna and I have been shoulder to shoulder in this work. She definitely is a mentor to me. Maybe not officially, but I watch her like she is. She's big sis, she's auntie, she's everything. I love her to pieces. And for her to congratulate me on my book, like, I did not think that she was watching because she has so much to pay attention to. I did not think that she was watching. So that definitely did get me a little emotional. What she was in reference to was Finally Home, the step-by-step guide for people preparing for first-time home ownership. And in the last 2 years, if you wondered if you could be a homeowner, if you wondered whether or not you make enough, if you wondered how to fix your credit, if you wondered, what is my landlord doing that I'm not doing that I could be doing, then this book is for you. It definitely gives you a step-by-step guide on how to clean your credit yourself. It also tells you exactly what it is that you need in order to be a homeowner. I spend a good 90% of my time not buying and selling houses, but 90% of my time educating my clients. And so this book came out of the need for my clients to completely understand the process and to have, this is the dinner time conversation that's not being had at our house. This is the conversation on wealth. This is the conversation on generational wealth. This is the conversation on credit. Like every conversation that we're not being that's not being had at dinner time conversations. This is why I wrote the book, because I didn't know. My mom didn't know. My aunties didn't know. And we had to find out when we were 30, 40, 50 years old. And so breaking that down to make sure that my children have this knowledge now so they can create a generational wealth that was, I was not privy to, my mother was not privy to, but it was important to me. It still is important to me to make sure that people have all of the knowledge so they can make informed decisions. And so I thank you for your time. I love you. I appreciate you. Shout out to Danielle. Thank you, Spark FM, for giving us a platform that we have been waiting for. Thank you to the Ayanna Pressley's team for making today happen. Do not forget, she said that you should be engaged. Fill out your census and contact her if you have any ideas, because she's willing to sit down and put together bills and foster policies based on your problems. And so I would say head over to her website. I believe it's ayannapressley.com, and just go to the contact us today or contact us now and let them know whatever issue that it is that you're dealing with. And when the question came up about Social Security 40D, she was like, you know what? I don't know, but teach me. How many politicians are saying that? I don't know, but I'm willing to learn. And so again, I'm honored. I have so much love and respect for her, and today was dope. And so I thank you. I love you. I appreciate you. Everything Tayla Andre, Tayla Andre. I hope you guys have an amazing day today. Mwah. Ooh.